Welcome to France Today Live. I am Sylvia Davis, culture editor for France Media and your host today. Thank you for joining us for this presentation by travel writer Keith Van Sickle, who is inviting us to discover Provence from an insider's perspective. In particular, I would like to thank you for your lovely comments on our last event. It really keeps us going. I will invite now Keith to start his video. Hi, Keith.
Hi, Sylvia.
Good to see you.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you for joining us. We're looking forward to dreaming about Provence through your presentation, and I personally will be taking careful notes for my next visit. So
Hope you come soon.
I hope so too. So with that, I'll introduce you for anyone who's not familiar with your work. Author Keith Van Sickle and his wife Val live in Provence since 2008 and currently divide their time between Saint-Rémy-de-Provence and California. Keith's delightful stories about living and traveling in France have appeared in France Today, Bonjour Paris, A Taste of France, Perfectly Provence, The Good Life France, among others. He has written 4 books, including An Insider's Guide to Provence, published in 2021, which is the subject of this talk today. Well, thanks again, Keith. And with that, over to you.
Thank you, Sylvia, and welcome everyone. Thanks for coming. As Sylvia said, I'll be talking about Provence and about this book, An Insider's Guide to Provence. And you might be wondering, so who is this guy and what makes him an insider? So, as Sylvia said, my wife Val and I, this is Val, have been longtime visitors to Provence. We first went there in 1994 when we were living in Switzerland and just fell in love with it and came back every year, sometimes many times a year. And finally, in 2008, we decided we're going to live there part of the year. So we spend typically 3 months in Provence every year, every single year. COVID got in the way. This year, we were there 6 months. And we explored all over the region. We lived in different towns before we finally settled on a town that we just love, Saint-Rémy-de-Provence. And we've also not only explored, but we've learned French, which I have to say is not easy as an adult. When we first got there, I didn't speak a word. My wife spoke some. And that has allowed us to learn more and also make French friends. So here are some of our French friends at a big Sunday lunch that we hosted. And they, in turn, have helped us learn more about the area, learn little corners of Provence we might not have found otherwise, favorite restaurants, introduced us to favorite foods, taught us funny local expressions, and have really deepened our knowledge of the area. As Sylvia said, I've written a couple of funny travel memoirs about our lives there, because when you move to a new country and you don't really understand the culture and you don't speak the language, you're bound to make lots of mistakes. And so I've written about both our adventures and our misadventures in Provence. These are these 2 books. And as Sylvia said, I've written now hundreds of articles about France and Provence, about places to see, restaurants to visit, quirky things about French life. And last year, when I couldn't travel because of COVID, I decided, well, if I can't travel, maybe what I'll do is I'll write a book about travel. And so I put all that insider knowledge together into this guide, which is not like other guides in the sense that there are already great guides out there from Rick Steves and Lonely Planet and others, and the world doesn't need another book just like theirs because they're great books. So what I try to do here is share the personal favorites of an American couple that lives in Provence. And there are things here that might not be in the other guidebooks or might be, but when they are, I try to give a different perspective, a deeper understanding, and share our view, which I think might be helpful to other people. And so with my book, I hope that readers will maybe get a few good ideas they might not have had otherwise that might add to their trip. And so that's what this book is, kind of a supplement to those other books. So now we will start, for those of you who don't know, where is Provence and what is it known for? Well, here's a map of France. So right up here in the center is where Paris is. And down here in the lower right-hand corner is Provence. It's a big area. It's about the size of Maryland, for those Americans on the call, and is on the southern border, bordered by the Mediterranean Sea. So it's got a big coastline. Over here on the right is Italy. So it's got some Italian influence, especially over on that side, like cities like Nice, which used to be Italian. Some of the big cities, Nice, Marseille on the coast, Aix-en-Provence, Avignon inland. These are places people often visit. But in addition to those big cities, there is a lot of open countryside, wilderness areas. There's a lot of agriculture. It's one of the bread baskets of France. So there's a lot of different countryside and a lot of different things to do and see there. And so what are some of those things that the countryside is known for? Well, for a lot of people, the first thing that comes to mind is lavender. In the middle of summer, you've got huge fields covered with beautiful lavender. It's very fragrant. You see it in the markets. It's just one of those beautiful, colorful, vivid parts of Provence. Provence is known for its hilltop villages like this one named Gourd. They're called perched villages or village perché because back in the Middle Ages, when things were unsafe, you had to put your villages on top of hilltops and mountains to be safe. And they still exist. They've got little crooked, windy cobblestone streets, little shops and fountains and cafes, and beautiful views across the countryside. Provence is known for the Mediterranean, the beautiful blue sea, and what's called the Riviera, or in French, the Côte d'Azur. Just lovely towns along the coast. Do women kiss men? Do men kiss men? How many times do you kiss? When do you kiss? Which cheek do you start with? Well, I help reveal some of these mysteries because I've actually found France-wide kissing statistics on how many you give in different regions, where you start, who does it. I have a whole section on les bises, which each tone might not be comfortable to do it, but at least you'll understand it when you see it. I also provide information for people with dietary restrictions, vegetarians, vegans, or people like me who can't eat gluten. I have celiac disease. It's very dangerous for me to eat wheat-based or other gluten-based products. But when you have those dietary restrictions, can you go to France? This is the country with the best bread in the world. How do you deal with it? How do you eat in restaurants? How do you shop? So I provide information on that so that people with those restrictions can dine safely in this country where you really don't want to not go because you can. You can. I help show you how. I talk about French pharmacies, which you will find everywhere. French pharmacies are like Starbucks in New York. They're on every corner because the French really statistically take more pills per capita than anybody in Europe. They're a little bit hypochondriac. But the good news is, for a traveler, pharmacies are kind of the first line of defense in the French healthcare system. Because if you're sick when you're in France, you got a problem, and you're like, how do I find a doctor? How do I find a doctor who speaks English? That could be hard. But finding a pharmacy and finding a pharmacist is really easy. And if one doesn't speak English, go down the block, you find another who does. And pharmacists are very well trained. They're very helpful. Explain your problem. They will help you. For travelers, it's really a great, great resource in France. French pharmacies have some other quirks. They don't operate quite the same as U.S. pharmacies. So I explain that to you so you won't do something deeply humiliating like I once did in a French pharmacy. And finally, I share with you the magic word in French, because there's one word in French which is vastly more important than any other, and that is hello. bonjour during the day or bonsoir in the evening, because your social interactions need to begin with this word. If you want to buy a baguette in the bakery, you don't say one baguette, please. You say bonjour, one baguette, please. Or if you're asking for direction, you don't say, excuse me, can you help me? You start with bonjour, because it's just an incredibly strong social rule. And if you don't start by saying hello, bonjour, you're being extremely rude, and you will get often kind of a bad reaction. And so I just explain why this is so important and how you use it. I even, when I walk into a shop and I don't even see anybody, I say bonjour to the air. And then when I see somebody, I say it again to them, because I don't want to get this wrong. So that's a little about Provence. That's a little about my book. It's available on Amazon worldwide, on any of the Amazon websites. You can get it. If you'd like to read some of those stories I told you that I write for different magazines, I then repost them on my website, which is keithvansickle.com. I'm on Facebook. I'm on Twitter. And I'm very happy to answer any of your questions about this magnificent corridor of France.
Thank you so much, Keith. That's so helpful. And of course, your articles are available on francetoday.com as well. So we already have questions. Shall we jump right in?
Let's do it.
Okay. Well, David is has a very kind comment. He says, just to say, I have been to Saint-Rémy several times to cycle with bespoke holidays. I'm very envious of you and your wife. and
But they come back soon.
and then there's another comment that says, this is by far the best Zoom call of 2022. Just saying. Just added Keith's book to my Amazon cart. Thank you very much. And Terry says, great presentation. And thank you, Terry. This David asks, whereabouts in Saint-Rémy do you live? Saint-Rémy proper?
Yes and no. So we've lived in different places. We don't own a house, we rent. So for several years, we rented a house right next to the Cascade des Alpines. So if you're coming into town from the Cavaillon direction, you'll pass kind of a little waterfall. We used to live right next to that. We have lived in town, right next to the, just a little bit behind the post office. And once we were a little bit outside of town in a place where our friends could never find it, we called it the Coin Perdu, the lost corner, because it was just kind of in the middle of nowhere. It's a beautiful place, but we try to repeat, but sometimes, for example, the place near the waterfall was sold. So we lived in different spots, but we just love Saint-Rémy.
It's a magical place. And we have so many questions. I'm having trouble keeping. Sandra asks, in general, what is the best time to visit Provence?
It depends on what you like to do. So for my wife and I, we prefer the shoulder season, spring and fall, because it's awfully hot in the summer. Now, some people like the heat. I have friends who come there specifically when it's hot because they like that. And there are lots of festivals and music and that sort of thing in the summer, because that's the high tourist season. July and August being the sort of the peak summertime. But we find that spring and fall is when it's less crowded, it's less expensive, and the weather is very pleasant. I think that May and September, for example, are just perfect months to visit. It's warm, it's usually dry, and there's enough going on, but it's not super busy.
That's a great tip in between the seasons. The Sandra asks, what would be the nearest airport if I am visiting Provence?
The major, well, it depends on what part of Provence. Again, it's a big area. So there are large international airports in Marseille, which is in the western part of Provence, and in Nice, in the eastern part of Provence, very near the Italian border. So those are both good international airports to come into. If you were to connect through Paris or somewhere else, there's smaller regional airports sometimes you can come into, but those are the two big ones.
Sandra says also, thanks for this beautiful presentation. And then she's coming to France in September. So
Perfect.
enjoy your travels, Sandra. The next question is, let me see. Have you been to the winery with the Roman ruins? I believe it starts with a B. Does it ring a bell?
With Roman ruins.
Mm.
There are Roman ruins everywhere, but one that's built in and around Roman ruins, the Master Tourelle is the one I mentioned that makes Roman style wine, and that is on the site of an ancient Roman villa, but that doesn't begin with a B. So,
Okay.
I'm not sure which one.
So Jenny, we'll have to look into that one for you. The Amy said, very interesting and helpful. Thank you for the presentation. Thank you very much, Amy. Then Deborah says, just want to say that Keith's books are amazing, informative, very well written and fun. We live part-time in a small town near Saint-Rémy, and these are our Bibles. Thank you, Keith. Thank you, Deborah.
Thank you, Deborah.
That's an endorsement, somebody who knows the area well. Karen asks, how do you find the cost of living in Provence, rent, etc.?
So it depends. We find it manageable. Now, we come from California, so I guess everything seems inexpensive compared to California. But it depends a lot on when you come. So prices in July and August, for example, might be double or triple prices in April and May, because that is the high season and lots and lots of people come. So when I say things are less expensive in the shoulder season, that's part of it. Also, in our case, we rent places for a long stretch, so we tend to find better deals that way. But there's a wide variety of places available, from nice hotels, small hotels, to lots of Airbnb and VRBO and other places. So it's a nice variety. A lot of people come, so there are lots of different kinds of places. And I find that food is generally less expensive, partly because it all comes from everything.
It's very local, yeah. And Karen asked a follow-up question. Have you experienced winter there? If so, how cold does it get?
I have not experienced winter there because it gets very cold. It's also a place, because tourism is an important part of the economy. A lot of things really close down in the winter. And it's an area known for the Mistral, the famous wind from the north, which is incredibly fierce. I've seen it knock birds out of the sky when it gusts. And in the winter, when it's cold and it gusts, it's miserable, because the Mistral typically lasts 3 or 6 or 9 days. So
it can drive you crazy.
We have somehow never found ourselves in Provence in the winter.
So Hannah asks, what is Provence like in November? So I think we've answered Hannah's question as well. It's not always windy, but you have a risk of having the
Mistral.
Right.
And we have been there at the beginning of November, and it starts to get gray and rainy and cloudy and just not as pleasant, because a lot of things you like to do in Provence are outdoors. So if you can't go outdoors, it's not an area you go to for the museums, for example, like Paris or New York. So the outdoor life is a big part of it. If you can't do that, it reduces some of the charm of the area.
Right. So Katie is visiting Provence in November. So is there anything she would need to know for that time of year, like restaurant closing, reduce hours at stores, tourist attractions? Do you know if
I think in general, there will be closures. Some restaurants will close for the season or will have reduced hours. That is true. I don't know. It's very specific to the places, but you'll have of course, better luck in the larger cities where there's more going on.
All right, that's a good tip. So Chris is visiting in the last week of March through April. Is that a good time to visit? He'll be staying in Saint-Saturnin-les-Alpes.
We usually go late March and go through into June. So I think it is a good time. It may tend to be a little colder when you first get there. Sometimes some rain, but not terrible. So I would just bring some warm clothing so that you can be out and about during that time. But it's a really nice time because the days are getting longer, things are opening up. You're starting to get asparagus in the market, and then strawberries, the early season crops, and it's not very crowded. So that's a favorite time to be there for us.
Right. And Stephen says, Keith, my wife and I have visited numerous times, mostly in the Luberon. Please share with your readers and viewers how extraordinary the area is to do biking.
Yes. So
I know you're a biking enthusiast, aren't you, Keith?
Yes. So one of the reasons my wife and I like Saint-Rémy-de-Provence is because it's right next to a small mountain range called Les Alpes, the Little Alps. And they're very dramatic looking. They jump right up from the plain, but they're not actually that high. So we can bike in them. When I say mountain biking, we're not really great bikers, but we enjoy biking. And there are lots of small roads. You can bike around there. And yes, another great area for biking is the Luberon, where we sometimes take our bikes up to do that. We actually spent a week there this year in a town and biked around, and it's just fantastic. Beautiful villages, beautiful roads. There's one nice Lavender greenway, which is where a former railroad track has been taken out and replaced with a walking and bike path. They have these all over France, but there's a really good one that goes up part of the Luberon Valley, and it's easy biking with great views. It's yes, biking in that part of the world is really nice. We do a lot of that.
Great. And especially with electric bikes for the hill.
We've seen a lot more electric bikes. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah, that's my style. Beverly asks, did you take French classes, and how long did it take you to feel comfortable speaking French?
Great question. I took some French classes, so I've done that. I've done the French study, etc. But I find that for most people, the hardest thing is to speak, because I know people who've taken years and years of French, but their grammar is perfect, but they open their mouth and nothing comes out because they're scared or they're nervous or they haven't done a lot of it. And our goal was to communicate, not necessarily to speak perfect. And one of our friends, actually an American friend, gave us a great tip, which is to find language partners, which for me was really the key that improved my French a lot. Because the problem is, if you go over there and you don't speak very good French, how do you have a conversation? Nobody wants to speak to someone who pauses after every third word and tries to think what they're saying. You're no fun to talk to. You're not interesting at all. But if you find somebody who is in the same position, but in the opposite direction, they're trying to learn English, and they're at your level, then they're very patient with you. As you're very patient with them, you're going through the same thing. So we found language partners who were similar to us in language skills, etc. And then for me, and Val did the same thing, we would get together once or twice a week, spend an hour, speak in English for half an hour, speak in French for half an hour, and it just really helps to get the wheels turning. And that, more than anything, helped me become conversational in French.
Right, because a big part of improving in the language is building up your confidence. Well, that's a great system. John asks, when is the best time to see the lavender fields, and which is the best area?
So they really start to come into bloom late June and are pretty much in full bloom by early July. Depends on the year and how hot it is. This year, it was such a hot year, things tended to be earlier by a week or two than normal, and runs through partway through August before they start to poop out. And some of the best lavender fields are a bit north of the Lubron Valley, an area called, I forget how it's pronounced, Soult, but you can look up different lavender areas. They're all day trip, pretty much wherever you're staying in the western part of Provence, you can take a day trip to the lavender.
And Scarlett says, bonjour, merci, wonderful presentation. Years ago, I went with French-speaking friends and enjoyed markets and views. And also we went to see the Van Gogh exhibit in the quarry, and you're right, it's absolutely fabulous. Thank you. That is, it is amazing, and just the scale of it, and that you feel like you're inside the painting. James asked, please talk about driving in France, renting car, insurance, rules of the road. Mercy.
Yes. So we always have a car, and really, unless you're with a group, you need to have a car if you want to see anything except in the major cities. The inner city transit exists, but you'll spend a lot of time waiting for trains and buses, et cetera. So having a car is pretty necessary. You can rent in any of the major cities or any place you might come into. That's not a problem. My wife and I actually benefit. There's a program for non-Europeans, which is less expensive than a rental car if you're renting for more than about 3 weeks. That's about the break-even point, where you literally buy the car and sell it back when you're done. It's just like a kind of lease, but it's very special for non-Europeans. You get 100% insurance. You get a brand new car. Automatic transmission costs no more than manual. I've written some articles about that. You can find them on my website. That's a great program. We use it. If you're there for a shorter trip, of course, you're going to use a rental, and then insurance depends on your insurance, what you have already through your own insurance company or through your credit card, etc. French drivers, the rules of the road are pretty straightforward. France has more traffic circles, roundabouts, than any country in the world. So you need to be comfortable with driving in a traffic circle, which is not hard. You just have to be used to the cars in the circle, have the right of way, etc. And French drivers, I think, are pretty good, with the one exception that I think tailgating is the national sport, because you could be setting a land world speed record, and there would still be a French driver on your tail thinking, wow, why doesn't this guy go faster? They won't pass you necessarily. They'll just tailgate you. It's very annoying. Sometimes you can tell what they had for lunch on their breath. They're so close. Especially in Provence.
Different perception of safe distance. And Ryan asked, what are the kissing rules specific to Provence?
Depends on what part of Provence you're in.
Yeah.
So in Saint-Rémy-de-Provence, it's 3 kisses. In Aix-en-Provence, it's 2 kisses, and that's only 40, 50 miles away. So it really depends. You generally are good friends with people you give the bise to. So women kiss women, women kiss men, men kiss men. So I kiss my French friends, but not everybody does it. Those are good friends. A casual acquaintance, you would not do it. And it's kind of funny. I once spoke to someone who insisted that everybody gives two kisses in France, but I give a link to a map in my book where you can look department by department in France, and it gives us kissing statistics. How many people give 3 kisses? How many give 2 kisses? I have a friend from Brittany who hates family reunions because they give 4 kisses. And to say goodbye, you have to kiss everybody. She says, "Oh, it takes a half hour to say goodbye."
Yes, and I don't know if in Provence it's the same, but in some areas of France, when you leave without kissing and saying goodbye to everybody, they call it filer à l'anglaise, leaving the English way, English style.
What's interesting is, yes, to leave rudely in French is to leave in English style. In English, it's called taking French leave. Each country blames it on the other. Very French.
Let's see. We're running out of time, but we'll do one more question. Well, Chris has also wanted to say thank you for your great presentation. I've already purchased your Insider's Guide. It's on my Kindle, ready for my trip to France next spring.
Great.
Bon voyage, Chris. I hope you enjoy your trip. Christmas in Provence, is that something one would do, or will most places be deserted?
I have not been to Christmas in Provence. I've written about it some because there's some really nice traditions though. So it is a big deal. You do have Christmas markets, you have city things decorated. So it's a big popular time of the year. That's where the santons come out, those little figurines that you see all over the farmers and the fishmonger and this and that, which interestingly were created during the French Revolution when the fanatics of the revolution banned all religious festivals and nativity scenes. And the smart people of Provence made these little other santons and said, "Oh, they're just village scenes, but they're actually nativity scenes in disguise," and they became a very popular thing. But there's some nice Christmas traditions in Provence you might enjoy.
And the 13 desserts also, right?
The 13 desserts.
After a meal, that always caught my attention.
Good luck with that.
So I think we're running out of time. So my last question is, what are you working on next?
So I'm just back from France 2 weeks ago, where I learned some new things. I found some places, some new things to write about. I found a few that aren't there anymore, and so I'll be editing my book to have a new edition for next year with some new information. And of course, I'm writing regularly for great publications like France Today.
And we look forward to your next article. So we got lots of emojis and love emojis, and Jones says, thanks so much for the presentation. There's more comments that I can read saying great presentation. Thank you so much. More love emojis just coming in. So thanks so much. Thanks so much, Keith, for joining us, and we
Thank you
hope
for having
that
me.
you can come back. Maybe we can focus on a particular area, because there's so much to see and do in Provence. So we look forward to your next visit. And thank you all for your questions and your participation, as always. And please make sure to join us on October 27th for fabulous French food with our favorite podcaster, Andrew Pryor. He's back. This time we follow him to a winery in Cognac, and then back to his kitchen for a fabulous seasonal dish where he'll show us how to make it step by step. No prior cooking experience required. So we'll see you again here on October 27th. And from all of us at France Today, à bientôt. See you next time. Bye-bye.